The International Monetary System, or IMS, allows countries and companies to do business across borders. But with more money moving around faster than ever before, these crucial links are becoming strained. We have global financial markets, but no effective way of managing them. The US dollar and US institutions dominated these financial links for the world. But in the last decade, Europe created a new international currency, and fast-growing markets, including Brazil, India, and China, have transformed the world economy so much that the existing system has reached a breaking point. It clearly needs a change, but how? The most popular view is that the world is moving towards a multipolar system based on the euro, dollar, and yuan. But all three face significant problems at home. The Eurozone is strained by weakened institutions, high debt, and a poor growth outlook. The United States has even higher debt levels, a large trade deficit, and a divided political landscape. China needs to keep opening up and strengthen its financial system to continue growing. This coin has three sides. Here are three takes on how it might play out. Scenario 1. Reversion to regionalism. The US and Europe's financial troubles continue and both become more inward-looking. Global exports slow down dramatically, stalling China's growth. Instead of traveling the world, capital stays in its home regions, making international currencies increasingly obsolete. Scenario 2. G2 rebalancing. The Eurozone breaks apart, making Europe internationally irrelevant. In the US, homegrown pressure about debt combined with the euro crisis kickstarts fiscal reform. China relaxes capital controls and its horizons widen. As trade imbalances between the US and China unwind, global growth booms. The dollar continues to dominate overall, but trade in and out of Asia is conducted in yuan. Scenario 3. Reconciling a two-speed world. The situation in Europe improves as leaders redesign the monetary union. Investors become concerned about US debt and pull out of the dollar. Meanwhile, China aggressively expands yuan-conducted trades through a new BRICS development bank. Policy discussions focus on how to reconcile this two-speed world. The scenarios show three potential outcomes. Which scenario are you prepared for?
Companies facing a strong or rising home country currency may wish to prune operations to cut costs and boost efficiency, adapt products to better suit international customers, source abroad for inputs if this reduces cost, freeze prices to keep sales moving. Companies facing a weak or falling home country currency may wish to source domestically to shorten the supply chain and avoid an exchange rate risk. Grow at home against the higher-priced imports of competitors. Push exports to exploit the price advantage gained from a weak currency. And reduce expenses by using the latest communication and transport technologies. Today's exchange rate arrangements. Today, the international monetary system remains a managed float system. But some nations maintain more stable exchange rates by tying their currencies to other currencies. Pegged exchange rate arrangement. The pegged exchange rate arrangements peg a country's currency to a more stable and widely used currency in international trade. Many small countries peg their currencies to the dollar, euro, the special drawing right of the IMF, or other individual currency. Others peg their currency to baskets of currencies. A currency board. A currency board is a monetary regime based on a commitment to exchange domestic currency for a specified foreign currency at a fixed exchange rate. The government is legally bound to hold an amount of foreign currency equal to the amount of domestic currency. This helps cap inflation. The currency board's survival depends on sound budget policies. European monetary system. Europe looked for a system that could stabilize currencies and reduce exchange rate risk. In 1979, they created the European Monetary System (EMS) to stabilize exchange rates. It was ended in 1999 when the European Union adopted a single currency. How the system worked. The exchange rate mechanism (ERM) limited fluctuations of European Union member currencies within a trading range or target zone. The EMS was successful, currency realignments were infrequent and inflation was controlled. Problems arose in 1992 and the EMS was revised in 1993 to allow our currencies to fluctuate in a wider band from the midpoint of the target zone. The exchange rate mechanism too was introduced in 1999 to link the euro to the currencies of nations applying for membership in the European Union. Of the International Monetary System. Recurring crises are raising calls for a new system designed to meet the challenges of a global economy. The revision of the IMF and its policy prescriptions are likely. Transparency on the part of the IMF is being increased to instill greater accountability. The IMF is increasing its surveillance of members' macroeconomic policies and abilities in the area of financial sector analysis. Ways must be found to integrate international financial markets to manage risk. The private sector must become involved in the prevention and resolution of financial crises.
Stephen, I would like you to, if you can, explain this pie chart to America on our spending here, our money problems. Can you explain this?
Well, we have multiple national debts, Glenn. We don't just have one national debt. Everyone knows that we owe $8 to $10 trillion in the accumulated budget deficits that we owe, but then we also owe somewhere in the neighborhood of $50 to $55 trillion, and that's trillion with a T, in money that we owe in Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, money that we don't have coming into the system. That is promises we made over what we're going to collect into the system. And then on top of that, Glenn, there's $16 billion that we've calculated.
Trillion.
Did I say
You said billion. I mean, what are you?
Even I'm guilty.
Hello. Billion's a made-up word. Let's use real numbers like trillion.
16 trillion, and those are guarantees that we've made on everything from student loans to pensions to virtually every mortgage in America today is guaranteed payment by the federal government.
All right, now let me show you the total of what these things cost. The total is $78.8 trillion. The reason why this pie chart has been made into a globe for you is to have you really understand this next number. Here it is. The world GDP is $78.4 trillion. It takes the entire world a year to pay off our debt. That's staggering.
This is what Barack Obama, U.S. President, said at the recent G20 summit, and I quote, "After years of taking on too much debt, Americans cannot and will not borrow and buy the world's way to lasting prosperity," unquote. Let's translate that into plain English. The US president is telling exporting nations like China and India that the world's largest consumer market is going to be buying less from them. Obama's desire for a fiscally prudent US is understandable. After all, the US deficit is now a whopping $13 trillion. But if America turns frugal, what will happen to China's and India's textile, toy and electronics companies?
Who else can import? Only the emerging countries. The pressure on China to export to the emerging countries will be much more greater. If there is a export crunch, then we will be affected much less than China.
But Chinese and Indian exporters will find competition in a newly export-hungry US. To beat down the US trillion-dollar deficit, Obama wants America to double its own exports. And this is what US President Barack Obama said at the recent G20 meet, and I quote, "No nation should assume that its path to prosperity is paved with exports to America. Indeed, I've made it clear that the United States will compete aggressively for jobs and industries and markets of the future," unquote. In fact, Uncle Sam wants emerging economies like China and India to buy more themselves and help rebalance global demand. All this could turn the existing global financial system on its head. Since 1945, Americans saved little and spent much. This allowed exporters like China and India to earn and save billions of dollars. These massive savings were in turn borrowed back by the US through its treasury bills at very low interest rates, which is what allowed the US to keep spending and buying Chinese and Indian goods. Obama says this comfortable cycle, informally called Bretton Woods II, is now over. What's troubling is that few in India appear to have noticed, much less reacted to Obama's statement. The government has been totally silent on the issue. None of the exporters we spoke to had any clue about what Obama has said, much less its implications. Both China and India have talked a lot about becoming the world's next generation economic powers. Now both countries will have to stand up and carry the responsibilities of great economic powers. And that's not going to be as easy as talking about it. Business Bureau, NewsX Delhi.